Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel called zuzanareacts, where I learn all things Bharat with your help, and I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. And in today's video we're going to continue on Sanatan Economics, as it's going to be a part 2 of the previous video. And as mentioned before, I thoroughly enjoyed the video and I'm super curious what we can learn together about this topic. But before we jump into the video,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
So we will just really continue from the point we left off. So let's do this.
I think the government should take this into consideration. This is beautiful.
I'm very sure that they do understand the damage that socialist, secular, and democratic has caused. Even if you see the election method, okay, this is the method of Christian missionary. कि तुम्हारी life में problem है और हम solve करने वाले हैं. That is how they brought about. Now, when they impose this, saying it as democracy all across the world, okay, they said that they had no idea that there will be another Abrahamic faith will breed like numbers. They thought Christian will make up luck and you would win the elections. But that's not what happened. You got another Abrahamic faith breeding like crazy. Okay. So now they are revisiting their concepts. And I would not be surprised because, see, when Europe goes to these crusades, I'm more than sure they will have to do Balikavadu. I'm more than sure about it. Because these grooming gangs are going to torture those daughters. Right? And that is the point in time when I'm going to tell them how orthodox you are. Right? Because that is what they told us. When we saved ourselves with Balikavadu, half of the country today does not know that they're surviving because of Balikavadu. Instead of being grateful to the ancestors for that supreme sacrifices which that small daughter went through just for the survival of the Hindu population. That is exactly where this attraction for the male child came. Because you need to fight with those grooming gangs outside your home, right? Nobody's going to tell you that. There was a whole serial on Balikavadu where they showed everything negative what happens with that daughter for doing Balikavadu. Why didn't they show the cause? Do they have the guts to show the cause?
Movies are doing a lot of damage. News is doing a lot of damage.
Okay, can you please do let me know in the comments what is this Balikavadu? Yeah, it would be interesting for context.
Just look at the last 30 years, the serial content. They will show man has absolutely no role other than an ATM card. That is what their understanding is. Now, you do not understand when the father is going to lose respect at home and is not going to participate in the fathering process. You are going to get a next generation full of criminals. Because you do not study what the second order and third order effect in the next generation because of this. You come up with these fancy things that men and women are equal, which comes from there. Okay? So, men and women are different. That is why they are marrying. If they were equal, why would they marry? Okay. So this concept of dividing people, destroying families.
Okay, I'll just stop here. Yeah, I mean, I understand what he's saying, I guess, but men and women are equal. We're just different. I guess it does depend in terms of how you define the word equality, right? I think every human is equal because we are simply human. We have the same birthrights, if you like. Yeah, I guess men and women biologically very different, and I think I see it as the two polarities. They are important in order to maintain the world, right? You kind of have in physics you have matter and antimatter, and it's important, and everyone has slightly different qualities, etc. Now I think in the West it's more about equality of opportunities, which is perhaps taken by feminism to maybe extremes, but it's about in the industrial society it was the guy that was the main breadwinner. Now women are and all the women were really doing were housewives, which on one hand there is nothing wrong with that if that was what you want, but I think the concept in the West of equality is that, like, if you want to build your career as a woman, you should be equally respected and you should have equal choices, which brings another set of kind of issues. And we have a lot about like, pushing women, and by all means I feel everyone should have equal opportunities to do what they want to do in life and not be ostracized. Now I don't know what the situation is like in India, but over here, you would have their arguments about we need that many women in executive boards, but I feel like it takes obviously time until you, at least in the West, the thing is like you ideally want the best candidate for the job. If it's a man, then it's a man, right? But now they're almost like, I'm not saying there are quotas, but I think many companies are very conscious about who they're putting in their leadership and having the representation of women as well, which sometimes there are different school of thoughts. With some camps they're saying, well, but then that's perhaps may not always be the best person for the job, and also women wouldn't want to be they claim in those positions just because they're there for representation of in numbers. So it's a very, very tricky subject over here for sure. I'm not too sure what it fully like over there, but I feel like if we we do live in a man-made society, that's a fact. I'm saying that as a woman, we do. And the thing is, imagine that it was a female-dominated society. Perhaps chances are we wouldn't have wars. Our belief system would look different, right? So a balance also in leadership is required. I don't know where this is going to go. I think it all points to me to spirituality and everyone working on themselves and people not feeling threatened, but I think it should be more about really understanding what are the strengths of both and how they can, create a synergy. So that's just what I think, but let's continue.
This comes from Abrahamic stuff, because they are telling their parents in the West, throw the kids out by the age of 16. They have the printing machine. The students take 1%, 2% loan.
Okay, can I just say that that's not true? Okay, he's basically very clearly talking about USA, and that is not what it's like. For example, it's Slovakia as well. In fact, it's when I say there are similarities between Slovakia and India, you have 50-year-old kids living with their parents still in Slovakia. So that's very, like, Slovak parents would never do that. I don't say never, right? Like, you have different kinds of parents everywhere in the world, but that's not usually the Slovak mentality. Slovak mentality is very family orientated, and kids are still, to my surprise, staying for a really, really long time with their parents. I think it's mostly for the economical reasons, but yeah. So when he's talking about this, he's clearly referring to the US, and I want to correct that.
And the parents are being told, instead of them, the state will take care of your retirement benefits, social benefit, Medicare, and things like that. Throw them out. Okay. This is how they destroyed their family as an institution. Just look at how gender indoctrination is moving all across the West, because they're simply destroying the families with this.
And the amount of suicides.
I agree that the family unit here for sure has been destroyed. Not so much in Slovakia, but very much. I think the US is a prime example. It's just a very, very different mentality. Very different mentality that I'm also struggling to understand at times.
Not knowing what to do in the end.
Certainly, because the understanding of self-control comes from the roughhousing that you do with your father at an early age. Now, fathers who are absent, fathers who are not respected, and fathers who do not know what their fathering role is because of the serial's content, the child will turn up into crimes. And data shows it. At least in the US, the data clearly shows that these are the single parent childhood that they have went through, coming out as criminals.
So that's actually true. I second that. From what I've understood also about the US, particularly one ethnic group that is accused of that, and the father thing. I think what is important to highlight here, that there is a something that in the West we call toxic masculinity, but I feel like in the West you have a crisis of masculinity. It's a really big deal, actually. I don't know what it is like in India, but you know, I don't think that in perhaps some households, like I feel like Slovakia is a bit more matriarchal. Whatever a woman says goes. But I can certainly see in certain cultures in the West there can be like very strong father figure who is abusive, etc. That's also not the way, right? So I feel like men don't know how to be a man. That is what's happening. And for some, and I don't know what it is like in India, it might mean that I have to be strict, I have to be whatever, but that's not men either, right? That's just not in my opinion. And I think it's someone that has worked on themselves. They know themselves. They know the strengths and weaknesses. I think that the biggest problem now to the male audience, I think that the biggest problem with male is their ego. And you need the ego in order to survive in this world, right? Like even the, you know, for the wars, etc. But when it comes to family, it's not the greatest of equality. Sometimes I think it's greatest in a way when you want to provide, but it can have a really negative impact on people around you. So I feel like men are genuinely very much the way they're designed, driven by their ego. And the thing is that unless you work on yourself, explore yourself from different angles, and the impact you're leaving, that is the crisis of masculinity. Because here in the West, you have a lot of people trying, as he was saying, transitioning, but also I think because the strong ego, it creates such a backlash with women that then men do not know how to behave anymore. And I think that one can be a very strong man, and as long as you're just looking at yourself that you're not always right. End of. No one is. Okay. I don't know why it's such a big deal for men to admit that they're not always right, because they're not. Like no one is always right. Like it's like a stupid ego concept. But because the whole thing, like in the West, with women, like you know, empowerment and women paying for stuff, etc. I feel from what I've seen that it makes men uncertain how they should act. And you know, the old kind of school way is that the man is providing for the family, looks after the family, and then you have in the US women clearly stating, no, I can pay for myself. And the thing is, like, everyone can pay for themselves these days pretty much, but at least in the West. But I think it's just, again, such a complicated topic, and and I think that the root cause is that because people don't work on themselves, and don't really try to understand who they are. And if you, when in the first part they were talking about Sadhguru and these kind of civilizational gurus and spirituality, it stems from you. You need to work on yourself. It's your reflection of you, how you behave and how you treat others. And it's okay that we'll not always be treating others the way we would desire, as long as we're working on it, right? Like we're not perfect, and I don't believe we should be striving for perfection, because it's an elusive concept that will never be fulfilled. But as long as you're working on yourself and you're like, okay, well, this is a kind of a person I want to be. I have behaved like this in the situation. I'm not happy with who I was in the situation. Now, there's no point of you beating yourself up for that. It's important to recognize, like, okay, this is how I've behaved. I didn't like how I behaved. So how can I make sure in the future, similar situation, I won't behave that way and I become a better person? And I feel like regardless of a gender, we need to start working on ourselves as people. And then perhaps we'll cease to have these types of conversations. It's just, I love this video. It's very, very thought-provoking and very interesting.
Okay. Now, if you do not understand that self-control for the male child comes at what point he's supposed to stop aggression, that comes from roughhousing with the father. Similarly, for the girl child, when she needs to take the situation in her control, comes with that self-control, which she had with her father. Okay. The mother might shout for 2-3 hours on the kid is not going to learn self-control because it doesn't come from her, frankly speaking. Okay. So it is very important to understand the role of a father in the family. And the serials are making a big damage when they show this kind of stuff.
Yes, that is one thing. Another thing is, West is definitely not a culture which should be inspired from.
They don't have any culture.
I'm not praising a lot about Sanatan Dharma, but Sanatan Dharma is the way forward for the entire world.
The concept of marriage itself talks about duties. All the feras, now there's nothing about the rights. It only talks duties.
Ankitji, today we have seen a temple is being built in the Islamic country, UAE. People are increasingly turning towards Sanatan Dharma. So when we look at the future of Sanatan Dharma and Sanatanis, so do you see Sanatan Dharma will take over the role of guiding the world?
Certainly, because all other models, since they have devised for one life format, one life is all that they got. Okay, so when radicals are telling the Europeans that you don't have any children, we are coming after you as soon as we have the numbers. So you've got to understand that all the models that are collapsing, the people have only ray of light coming from Sanatan. So I would not be surprised if in a few years you find the Prime Minister doing Pran Pratishtha even in Saudi Arabia. I'll not be surprised at all. Because understand, these are Chandravanshi people, and I've clearly put out some of the signals where the Kaaba and Somnath comes in the same line and length. Similarly, the Temple Mount of Israel and Kedarnath comes in the same line and length. Now, I'm not a historian, but I'm saying we should push this research to find out what's a connect. Because the last month as we went to Israel, a Jewish expert told us that it was through the Silk Route across Saudi Arabia, all the incense sticks were coming from Bharat for doing puja at the Temple Mount. They told us. And the Jewish Bible has those names of incense sticks in Sanskrit mentioned over there. Okay. So we got to understand that these MOUs which the Prime Minister has concluded with UAE and Saudi Arabia for full access of national archives. This is the starting point. We should start beginning the research. I'm more than sure you will have mandirs coming up. The ancients will rise.
Fantastic. Ankitji, we talked about many things, the GDP, reviving temples, Sanatan Economics, and all sorts of things. The government to function better in the future, what the government should prioritize. Like Sadhguru was saying, the most important priority is the new government should be to hand over the administration of Hindu temples to devotees. So should Hindus have the first right on temples? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, to understand that there was an era where we had the threat of invasions, where mandirs were being destroyed. Okay, at that point, there were people who, that panic created a lot of protectionism, that we need to protect the deity, we need to protect this premises. There were people who died. There were people who took the deity to their home just to save it. Okay, now that era of protectionism is over, right? You have the strongest Vigraha now standing in Ayodhya, the strongest Vigraha of the world. Okay, and that has geopolitical waves as well as we speak. So Ayodhya as a central node, with a seamless connectivity of Mandir ecosystem from Saudi Arabia this side to Laos, Cambodia on the other side. This is what I look at it in the future. Okay. Now, there were questions about what if other people enter the premises, should that be allowed? There are questions, and there are some genuine reasons, like people who would damage it, defile it, some treating it as some tourist spot. Okay, at least not the central, that Sanctum Sanctorum is certainly not a tourist spot. Okay, now there are these genuine concerns, and then there are mandirs which that came up in UAE where Muslims are going to enter, right? Tomorrow, if Iraq builds a mandir, obviously the Muslims are going to enter. Okay, so I think we need to come out as a civilization from this protectionist thought that others cannot enter, because dharma is for everyone. Now, you do need to put those controls, as you rightly pointed out. There are these concerns, so there can be a process of what we call as dharma arambha. Okay, you can put up in the periphery where whatever the deity requires, or whatever the clothing required, or whatever the rules are, those are explained so that whoever enters comes with that energy of embracing whatever the benefits are of the darshan. Okay, because these people talk about blindly following the commandments, we talk about darshan, blind and darshan. You can see, right, the difference between the two models. Okay, so certainly a priority for the government to loosen out the control, but I think it's also about how the states are handling it, because many of the states want money out of it. Okay, exploitation, and put it to secular usage.
Yes, that is the center of the problem that we are dealing with right now. Uh, when the temples are under devotees' control, the major problem is we do not have a proper Gurukul system where they produce this archakas and a trust system where the temple will function exactly the way it was in the ancient times. Right now, we have a bunch of educated, the Western educated and job going people. If you put it in their hands, it'll be really difficult. With the current BJP government at the center, there should be a coalition.
I think a centralized body will be first required. First, you have to build a centralized body which will study the variations of the kind of mandirs that we have. Some might be different how they operate in the north, some might be different how they operate in the south, some might be different based on community wise, some might be different based on what the deity requires in that mandir. Okay, so I think one umbrella body is the first step. After you have that umbrella body, study the whole diversity of the dharma and sampradayas that we have. Okay, then I think you can decipher what part of regulation, if at all, should go in the state list, and what part of regulation, if at all, should go into the central list. Okay, and then the liberating process can begin, because if you do it haphazard or fast, there could be chaos in between. Okay, besides, I think when they revisit the constitution document, I think that is the point in time they can diversify the state list and central list as well. As you already know that the delimitation commission will come up with might as well change borders of some states, because you have 888 seats now, and at least I think 600 to 700 will be where the expansion will be in the first stage, some of these seats being women reservation as well. So we as the people of the country, we have to give out this message to the people that we are the citizens of Bharat and not of the state. This is the first message that needs to go. And once this understanding comes that we have now massive geopolitical responsibilities for a larger region where countries are looking at us for guidance, you can't get into this, short-sighted approach of this is mine, this is theirs, this is the next state ka property hai, this and that. Okay, there will be new union territories coming up, there will be some border shifts happening, and the country should be ready for this.
Ankitji, you perfectly predicted about Article 370. And yesterday, PM Modi was shaking hands with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif becoming the PM. How do you see the India-Pak relationships? And make one more prediction about POK.
So I'll tell you, Pakistan as a country has two clear paths. Either of the one they have to select. One is they continue with the radicalization process and they go on losing territories. And second path is they become completely subservient to Delhi for governance, taking guidance from Delhi about what to do. I believe a lot of scope is there for a mandir ecosystem with a sustained cash flow for Pakistan, be it Hinglaj Mata Mandir, or there are many ancient sites, because that was a part of where the civilization grew. Okay, so with a seamless inflow and outflow for the Bharatiya tourists and also the pilgrims, they can have a sustained cash flow where they no more need to beg for money outside. So a complete subservience to Bharat for policy making, and for that they first need to acknowledge that they failed with this experiment that they did. Okay, once that acknowledgement comes, I think there's a good chance that all the Indian partners, including Saudi Arabia and UAE, interested in investing money to revamp their education system for the de-radicalization process, because that is the money that they need. I think about 100 to 200 billion to completely revamp from carpet the entire education format, because those jihadis are coming up as graduates from those units. Okay, so that is the second path which they can take. And I think Pakistan, some of the elements of Pakistani establishment do understand that all other nations want it to beg money except Bharat. Okay, and understand in the era where we are moving towards of a multipolar world order, there's a lot of uncharted territory coming in. If you want to look international, that might sound fashionable for some time, but those benefits will trickle down to you based on the moods of those who are now soon going to be the ex-powers. Okay, so there's a clear choice. You want to do internationalism, look fashionable, be dependent on them. They themselves are now becoming ex-powers. That's the reality. And the reality that for you is that India is your reality of the region. Okay.
And this is not just like what the media shows and the internet says. The serious religious heat that is going on between Pakistan and India. End of the day, it is economics, and you can't get the country go bankrupt. People do not have food to eat. We have seen
You
a
keep
crisis.
losing territories. You move in that direction. You keep losing territories. Certainly, Pakistan occupied Kashmir is something that we need to have. And I mean, if I would want it before elections, because why will not I flaunt it if I've achieved it, right? So I think it should happen as early as possible, because that the way they have planned, right? 370, how they plan. So this is typical, because I've been observing. I read human body language of leaders. So I've been observing their rule in Gujarat. So I do know that they don't work on the symptoms. They work on the roots. And when you work on the roots, you first decide the end point and then work back what needs to be done today. And in that process, there is a gap of where you have to have patience, because this allegation would come on you that this Shaheen people were sitting, you did nothing. Now it's very easy to send 500 troops and make them walk back to their home. You can work on the symptoms if you choose to, but that is patchwork solution. You want a permanent Ayurvedic kind of a solution, work on the root problem. So this government works on the root problem. As I said, if de-radicalization concludes in Saudi Arabia and UAE, there is not much that we will require to do here. I'm telling you.
A lot of great work is already done. They have taken a lot of beating. When I see the movie, I understand there is a great opportunity to
short-term pains.
Yeah, there is enormous opportunity to freak
as soon
out.
As they made government with PDP, people started bashing them without understanding that it is important if you want a root cause solution. Similarly, people are now waiting for Bengal. They are why not action is happening? Why not action is happening? Action doesn't happen that way. First, there has to be end point, and you have to work back all the steps, because you can't leave the state in chaos. Presidential rule डालना कल डाल देते हैं. What next? You know the next step. What will happen on ground with the Hindus after that presidential rule? Are you prepared for that? So you have to first decide the end point. Certainly, I also understand that presidential rule is going to be the step one. But step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all need to be calculated before we go for step 1, right? It will certainly come.
When you look at what goes into the minds of Amit Shah ji and Modi ji, it's really, really incredible. The amount of frustration that a man can go through is at peak level at that stage. But still, the way they act so calm, and
that is the dharmic bent of mind which
absolutely
keeps them going.
Absolutely. Only they can fix this Bharat, which has been totally ruined by Congress for the past 70 years.
And they would have, I'm telling you, they would have date-wise plans till 2047. Nothing to worry.
Wow, I'm so lucky. Ankit ji, India is set to become third largest economy. And how do you see the India-China relationships?
So, as I've been saying, Bharat-China relations will always be at peak when you give them a nice beating at LSE and they scream from that foreign ministry statements. That is the peak of Bharat-China relations. When they both act lovey-dovey, there's some problem underneath. So, eventually what I see is multipolar Asia is, as we know, a precondition for a multipolar world. So China will have to digest this fact that you cannot have a unipolar world anymore. And if you want a multipolar world, then you have to dissect the sphere of influence between Bharat, China, and Russia. Okay. Now, when you dissect this sphere of influence, or whatever regional leadership, if you want to put up a better word, okay, when you dissect this, there are two important elements here of this entire decolonization process, which I say de-dollarization, decolonization, de-radicalization, decommunism, and demissionarization. All five will happen, goes parallel. So in the process of decommunism, we are expecting two clear things. One is a reversal of 1965, cultural revolution, which means you will revive every single mandir within China. And then you put on display everything that had ancient Bharat linkage at a full public display. Okay. And another is a reversal of 1979. 1979, they had a deal with President Carter. Deng Xiaoping comes back, imposes single child policy. They then become the manufacturing giant for the world. So we are saying reversal of 1979. You revive back all those festivals back. You're going to split manufacturing between Russia, Bharat, and China. Not just you alone doing manufacturing.
Open up the Kailash route.
A lot of it. Once the mandirs are revived, it's a natural tangent that they have to open up that route. Okay. So I see that once these two reversals, we are able to at least see the starting signals, we can believe that a background is set for a genuine bilateral. Otherwise, why should I even sit with you? I do not have any background to even sit with you. I have many other nations to do important bilaterals with. Why should we do this drama anymore? And you got to understand that when you split the regional leadership, till Laos, Cambodia, we had Sanatan spread, which means that ancient Buddhism and all those dharmic which were linked to the Bharatiya Upmahadvip will be revived back. We are not saying they are going to have military expositions in that region, in the South China Sea. We are saying cultural ties are going to be revived, and you are not going to come in the way. Okay? And the second one is the trade route, which is Chennai Vladivostok, that we want to revive. These are the two. We are not looking for any military adventurism over there, but these are the two which will happen around China. So you got to be ready with that.
Fantastic. And in this regard, I think people have learned not to take seriously the opposition. At this point of stage, they are gone.
They are a gone case. They don't have any vision. All they talk is caste discrimination. I don't know where they come this Brahmin poisoning stuff. All suddenly happening with the Ram Mandir. You understand why it is happening, right? Because they know what is coming next with the Mandir ecosystem. They're scared, shit scared about that. So the magic of the civilizational independence date, 22nd January 2024, is that prior to that date, they were saying Mandir se jobs thodi aayega. Post that date, there's not a single statement by anyone saying. Instead, they are saying Ayodhya will become this $1 trillion economy. That's the magic of that date.
Yes, we have seen what those institutes of charity have done. Teresa.
We all know rice bags.
So Ankitji, World War I, World War II we have seen. Do you think with the current systems of countries positioning, do you see a World War III is going to come?
Well, if you use the word world war, what I construe is many nations going for a war, right? I don't see that kind of a thing. Anyways, if they want to do, understand, we have come out of that time of Chanakya, where in his mandala theory he says, neighbor's neighbor is going to become your ally, neighbor is your enemy, right? He was not at a time when there was Abrahamic infusion in your society. So that mandala theory worked back then. Now we got to understand that with the globalized world, the dangers are sitting next to us within the geography. Okay, so we got to understand, why would you need a world war when you can spread a virus?
That's true.
So the Trojan horse has entered your geography. Okay, so you don't need a world war. You can do many other things without doing an actual war, right? So we need to be careful about those. But I do see these pockets reversing: Ukraine, Taiwan, POK, and what's going on between Israel and Iran. Because all these four pockets were artificially created just to keep pound and dollar as a single country reserve status going. All four were artificially created. So you see Europe standing at Russian borders, Russia standing at Chinese borders, Chinese standing at Indian borders, India standing at Pakistan borders, Pakistan standing at Afghanistan borders, Afghanistan standing at Iran borders, Iran standing at Iraq borders. So in this entire process of going with that single country reserve currency status, what I called in my book as two buckets theory, they created two buckets. One bucket of nation was given arms and dollars. Second bucket of nation were given sanctions. So every nation was told, कि तेरा बाजू वाला चोर है. Your neighbor is a rogue country. We are going to sanction them, which means by default you have to go ahead with the US dollar. Okay, this is how the single country reserve currency format was designed between pound and US dollar 400 years. Now, since you don't require dollar anymore in this de-dollarization process, the four artificial hotspots are now reversing. Okay, so Ukraine will be done, POK will be done, Taiwan will be done, and Israel-Iran conflict will also close. But it will happen. It's a conflict, right? Even for closing, you will require a conflict, right? So this is how the single country reserve currency format shifts to now a multipolar order.
Yeah. Ankitji, you have given a very great elaborate about the geopolitics and economics and stuff. For a common man to understand, to put it in simple terms, do you see 2024 and the future is going to be scintillating or dangerous?
Well, a mix of both. But for Bharat, it is going to be a certain progress for sure.
What are your thoughts on Annamalai and the future of Tamil Nadu?
So looking at the wave that I have observed, I see at least 3 to 5 seats.
Wow.
And it's big. It's not small.
Yes, of course. In a state like Tamil Nadu and the current situation, it's incredible.
Looking at the wave right now, because he's done massive work on ground, I believe 3 to 5 seats.
And in the next term, he's going to make it.
And that's a big voting percentage if you get those seats, right? Which is incredible.
So Ankitji, whether they are NRIs or Westerners who give Gyan to Bharat, these people who give cheap advices and speak bad about Modi ji are not getting the proper treatment before. But now, this recently we saw Nitasha Kaul being prevented from entering India. Has the time come that Bharat will no longer receive this criticism?
Certainly. And I've been giving these messages for quite some time, that NRIs, and because they come from this, once you shift out of Bharat, you are voting there. Now, what is your purpose advising here? Specifically, when you are clearly saying that you left Bharat because of reservation, corruption, XYZ problems. Now, this is the generation to whom you passed on that problem, and the reforms have begun. Now, what purpose you have advising on the reform? When you left the country, when you were supposed to do that struggle, you didn't do that struggle. You chose those greener pastures for whatever reasons. Okay, we are not arguing why did you choose that, but we are saying things which you failed at, you want to advise us on. Okay, so we are not going to take that anymore. Second thing, when this Raghuram Rajan kind of people, this cabal, this entire Western narrative of indexes, and I think Jaishankarji clearly told that you were playing mind games with us with those indexes. Now understand, when they were playing this game of saying Hindu rate of growth and insulting us, why didn't the NRI stood up and said, we are the Hindu rate of growth, look at our performance? Did they say that? They didn't. Okay. Now do understand that these NRIs or even the Western people now, because they are not able to speak what they are supposed to speak and criticize their constituencies, they are waiting for those green cards for years, and the borders are open down there. Can they speak a word? 6 students got killed. Did they speak a word? No, not a single Twitter handle speaking about it. But they have all kinds of advisory for Bharat, reserved for Bharat only. So I think somewhere down the line, NRIs need to have this acknowledgement of the fact that they were successful not because they were intelligent. They were successful because they had the concept of handling finance from the Sanatan Economics model, where we say that there is life cycle economics, which means you take care of your parents and you also take care for the savings so that you ensure the next generation completes their education. Whereas the Western families, when they turn to it at the time of education, their 2-3 parents change. Okay, so you are successful not because some Abrahamic Western classroom taught you that you need to take care of parents and save money and also take care of the next generation. No Abrahamic classroom taught it. No Abrahamic friend circle taught them that. Sanatan brought that finance concept to them, which is why they were successful. So to say that this was brain drain, which is what the popular narrative is, tell those people this was dharma drain, the benefit of which those economies had. Don't tell me this was brain drain. Tell me this was dharma drain, the benefit those Western economies had of that kind of productivity.
Ankitji, we will conclude the session with the rapid fire round. Rapid fire doesn't mean one word answers, short answers. Yeah. So let's begin. When is India expected to get a permanent seat in UNSC?
Before 2030.
Wow. Predictions on India and US elections?
India election is very clear. I've said 350 seats, 350 plus. Before 2 years back only I said that. That's very clear. US elections, I believe there will be a big crisis before that. So it can go either way.
Okay. The future of NRI Indian diaspora?
They have to come back. They'll be beaten.
What is the difference between the views of Abrahamic and Sanatan thought about life?
One is consumption, second is preservation.
Wow. Thoughts on religious conversion in Bharat versus Garvapsi?
Well, Garvapsi means that those children who had gone rogue, now their pockets are empty, they want to come back to the parents.
What is the difference between dharma and religion?
Dharma is about science of seeking. Religion is about belief systems for hyper-consumption.
Ankitji, the definition of soul according to Sanatan Dharma?
One with consciousness.
So Ankitji, what would you like to say? Did I miss anything, or would you like to say something to the people who are watching our show?
Well, my message to the people who are watching this would be that stand with this government, because this is the only government who is able to give a non-corrupt governance, and a lot of these the credit goes to the family of the Prime Minister. I would give more credit to the family rather than the Prime Minister, because wherever family is involved, there are good chances of getting compromised. Anybody, because that's the emotional attachment that you have. The family is living a normal life without any connection with the Prime Minister, and that has enabled a corruption-free governance top to bottom across the country. So this entire credit goes to the virtues of the great mother of the Prime Minister, the parenting that they did, and the entire family. So each of us now, being the adopted family of the Prime Minister, it is our duty to go out and vote and ensure that we enable him to make 1,000 years plan that he envisages for the Bharatiya Upmahadweep.
So the conclusion here is vote for BJP and Congress Mukt Bharat.
Certainly, that is what it translates into.
Yeah. Remember, the symbol is lotus.
Symbol is lotus, where the Devi sits.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ankit ji. Thank you so much for your time. Wonderful conversation. Jai Shri Ram.
Now, you guys, this has been truly fascinating. Truly fascinating. The second part was more kind of about like the Hindu internal or kind of affair, or Indian internal affairs, which obviously I'm not very privy to, so it's hard for me to comment. But it's fascinating about the NRIs, like the conversation they had at the very end. So does that mean that so I would love to know from you. So what is actually happening? So the people from abroad are saying like what you should or shouldn't do within your country, and that's like not going down well, or are these people that are like political figures, celebrities, perhaps? I'm just curious, like, because it seems like it's a sticky point over there, and I wonder what this is about. So if you could let me know in the comments, that would be super helpful. Now, it's just, for me, it's been actually quite a lot to digest, as I was talking about it in the part one, the difference how you view the world through Abrahamic and Sanatana kind of philosophies, religions, what have you, even though it's uncomparable because one is one, the other is other. I wouldn't agree that the Abrahamic religions were created for consumerism. I think it's a far-fetched statement, but certainly the one concept, like you have one life only and you need to get to heaven, all that kind of stuff. I'm definitely, it's just, I really enjoyed it. It was very, very thought-provoking, as I mentioned before. I really like when he talked about, the government or whoever, they're with a thought in mind of working on the root cause and everything. And the reason why it personally resonates with me a lot, because everything in my world, in the Western world, especially when it comes to business, and I'm just talking about like jobs that I've held, and I've worked with a startup, scale up, since everything is a patchwork and it's just so annoying. I understand why it is that way, but I really love the idea that you have an end in mind and you're working on getting somewhere and eradicating and working from the roots, because I feel like if everyone adopted that mindset, things would be different. But where I am, we live in hardcore capitalism, and when you get there first, you get an advantage, and for that you need a lot of patchwork. So just different approaches, different philosophies, perhaps long term you have one solution, short term you have another, but sometimes if you don't survive short term, there is no long term. I'm just talking about business, it's different to politics. But I really like the kind of Indian way. I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of what I believe, one with consciousness, and the fact that in the West it's all about the growth, and you certainly there is a growth without, when you let's say you have a product and you're shifting a product, and you can still grow. But I feel like this in the West we have, and I think what they were trying to allude to during that video was that it's not sustainable, and I don't believe it's sustainable, because everything is just about driving growth, driving numbers, and not caring where the world is going. And yeah, that's not going to end up well. But I think that just stems from us individuals as well. Part of it is the system that we live in. Part of it is also, if you choose not to play. But it's complex, like everything. Nothing is just black and white. There are millions shades of gray, if you like. So Yeah, I mean, if you could really let me know about this Balika Vadu, what that meant, and this NRIs, and what the situation is like that over there, like why is that a subject? It would be interesting for me to know. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video with me. If you did enjoy, please give a thumbs up, share, like, and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you next one. Until then, please do take care. I am sending much love. Bye-bye.